not quite clear that they really had smelting capability. So the likely thing is they used meteoric iron. When you say molten out of the hill, that's what I'm saying is he's using the lava itself as the heat source. Every tribe had one, pretty much, and what they were was they would wrap them in linen, and it had all kinds of like special weapons.
Glory, glory, glory.
I'm digging that.
They call it the anachronism, right? Okay, steel is an anachronism.
It's really not.
Yeah, exactly.
Betas.
This testimony is matching the description that Jerry's given. It really is.
So they start finding in the 60s Olmec concave breastplates that perfectly match the description of one Lucy Mack Smith, meant for a man of extraordinary size, as explained in the Book of Mormon. This is incredible stuff, dude. Wow. This literally sounds exactly like the Olmec chest plate. Got our scripture notes up and running. All of the scriptural references used in this episode will be brought to you by scripturenotes.com. For a free trial to Scripture Notes, please visit the link in the description. Shul and the Jaredite swords were made from lava from volcanoes?
That's part of the story, but yes, I always present something kind of crazy, right?
And it's
Not crazy. Super interesting and usually tied to a volcano.
Yeah,
That's right. Well, I've told people I was born on a volcano
That's right.
in
That's
Hawaii.
funny.
So
All right, so wait. So who is Shul and how did he make Jaredite swords from volcanoes?
okay, well, Shul was one of the kings. Actually, part of why he actually had to make the swords is because he was basically driven out, and so he had to create his own little army and then come back to take the kingdom, right?
Right.
And so he went to the hill Ephraim. It says he went to the hill Ephraim and moltened out of the hill and made swords out of steel. So it just talks about molting out of the hill. And it's kind of a curious thing because there were swords mentioned before that, but this is the only time it's mentioned as steel, that they made steel swords.
Was that molten in the original manuscript like MOU? Like
Yeah.
we were talking about it in a different podcast? Like
Yes.
MOU in the original manuscript.
Right.
Okay.
And then so that's kind of the question is, why is he having to make steel swords? In the Mesoamerican context and in the model, one of the reasons is because where he was driven to, the land of Heth, was in the Tuxtla Mountains, which has volcanoes, but it has no obsidian. And yeah, so the theory is that they would normally use obsidian, but he had no access to the obsidian as a trade item or anything because he was kind of driven out. So he was almost forced to use this to make something out of steel. Now,
Because other swords at the time would have been made out of obsidian, and that would have been a primary trade tool and a generation of wealth for so many different cultures.
right, and so there, we actually have obsidian
Cities,
being used there,
locations,
but imported, right?
Yep.
And into the Tuxtlas. There's just not any obsidian deposits there.
Gotcha.
So that's kind of an interesting kind of question you have to ask is, why is this even mentioned? There's obviously religious reasons, but why would he make steel swords? And then the other thing is, you need to keep in mind that Shul is in a direct line to Ether, and this will become of some importance when we talk about maybe where the swords of Shul ended up. So essentially, kind of the proposal is that they did not have, it's somewhat removed from the time that they came from the Near East, and it's not quite clear that they really had smelting capability. So the likely thing is they used meteoric iron, which is meteor. A meteor comes down, leaves an iron. Piece of iron.
I'm digging that.
And one of the things that's kind of cool about that, Cardin, if you want to pop up my screen.
Yeah, rock on.
Oh, no.
With your
The umbrellas.
Wait.
The umbrellas are back.
With all the gay pride umbrellas.
Oh, there it is.
Man.
No, it popped in.
Okay.
There it is.
Okay.
Yeah, if you know, this is a piece of a sword that was formed from a meteor, right? So it's an iron meteor, and if you look at the design,
That would be one
pretty
expensive
cool.
sword.
Right, and so I think that because that's really we know that's the iron that was probably available to them.
Whoa.
And so you have this basically made from a metal that fell from the sky, kind of this religious connotation. I'm not talking necessarily Christian or Hebrew, just by any native culture, right? That would be something of importance.
Wait, but that's going to be a massive meteor. If you have a meteor large enough to make even a dagger this big, the kinetic energy that was released on impact from a meteor that big is as large as some bombs that the U.S. military has. Like, I mean,
And-
that's what made it through the atmosphere before it arrived on Earth.
And I've been watching a lot of Paw Patrol lately because I have a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old, and I know what happens when you touch meteors. You instantly get superpowers. This is how the super pups happen, people. So
This is how the Jaredites got so large in
that's
stature,
right.
like the Ninja Turtles.
We have now
man.
figured it out. These swords
Yeah.
were empowering them.
Well, then, and there are records of the use of meteoric iron all over the world anciently by the cultures, right? And so, in fact, all the ones up in North America, they could actually get them easier because they could see the meteor. They're on the Great Plains, so it's like, oh, it's falling there, and they could just go find it. As far as big, there's some big ones, and they would just hack off a piece of iron, last for 100 years or something, you know.
How hard is it to melt down meteoric iron?
Well, it's no different than regular iron, but you don't have to smelt it, so it's already iron.
Okay.
It's already pure iron, right?
So it's the same property.
Yeah. And there's a way, that's the other kind of they call it the anachronism, right? Okay, steel is an anachronism. Number one, it's only really mentioned.
not.
It's only really mentioned.
It's really not.
Yeah, exactly.
Betas.
Because they don't realize you can make steel without, you can just carburize the surface of the iron and make steel
Right.
on the surface. And you can do it in temperatures that you can get in a bonfire, for example. But anyway, so let's kind of go on. The reason it was important of ether is because I'm presuming or asserting also that the swords that were recovered that came through the Limhites with the 24 plates were the swords of Shul. They were part of this religious relic.
Oh.
Okay. So
Wait, but explain that really fast. So when you say
I can get totally into it in a few
Okay.
minutes.
Sure,
Kind of
go
give you the
for it.
whole concept there. So I'm just saying these are important not because of just, okay, he fought this battle. There's something religious about them, something unique about them, and also that they were special, meaning steel swords were not a normal thing, right? They were unusual, rare.
Yeah.
That's why they were a relic. So people saying, oh, all the steel that was being made, it was like, no, just because they mentioned this.
They're mentioning it because it's the exception,
Exactly.
not mentioning it because it's what's common. What's common is
Exactly.
rarely mentioned. The exception is often mentioned.
Right. One of the reasons we're talking about a volcano is because Ephraim, the word Ephraim, it's a Hebrew word and it means casting lots up in the air, throwing things up in the air. If it's a hill that's doing that, it looks like it's some sort of volcano, right? And and also Heth, the land where he went. We know he went to the land of Heth. That's where it said in Hebrew. That means to seize or snatch up fires and coals. That's hata, or mata means a fire pan or censer. So actually the name itself gives us some indication. Again, this is another one of these Jaredite names that probably was, maybe translated into a Hebrew form,
Right.
as part
Right.
of the
Matching the circumstance and the events. And
right. So if you want to show my screen here, Carden, this is kind of how I had drawn out the lands, these early lands of
That's
the Jaredite lands.
Tuxtla Mountain areas.
Exactly.
So we're on like Veracruz, Tabasco.
Yep. Veracruz is to the north. Tabasco's further over to the
In Mexico.
south. Yeah, in Mexico. There's Lake Catemaco is right there. So kind of orient. It's really, the Tuxtlas are really the only mountain range in that area. So
Right.
Okay.
So essentially, the name of the land where he goes, the name of the hill indicates volcanic activity, right? So as I mentioned, Ephraim means a boiling pot. Parur, these are Hebrew derived. This isn't me. This is others that have looked at it biblical scholars, right? Because that's a name from
looking at the ancient Hebrew.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
The Bible people have looked at this. Can also mean like turns a living body into dust.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay, rock
Yeah,
on.
right. So it's kind of like, okay, this is kind of matching.
Can these bones live, Lord? Thou knowest.
Right. So, and the area of the Heth that has these cinder cones, which look like this. So they're not like Mount St. Helens where it blasts and it wipes everybody out. These are ones that sputter up, throw into the air. They produce like these cinders and they run out. So the question is when you say molten out of the hill, that's what I'm saying is he's using the lava itself as the heat source.
From the lava flow coming down the side.
Right. Or just a pool of it or something like that.
Are they active today?
They have like fumaroles and things, and it hasn't erupted for some time. It's a volcanic field that's south of the San Martin volcano.
Right.
It's part of that complex.
Okay.
Right. And so and they have erupted historically. So it's kind of matching, we know the place. We know what he's doing. Volcanoes in Mesoamerica were this religious, they had gods of volcanoes. So the whole, I'm not saying it's mythical, it's religiously mythical, meaning it happened, but it's larger than life. Again, one of these Jaredite things like we talked previously about Ogath, or, they kind of have these, it's a little different than the rest of the Book of Mormon.
There's some allusion to some greater things happening.
Yeah. Meaning it's a religious thing that, and that's probably why this is very early on in the history. So it's passed probably down as oral tradition. They had these swords that they kept. So there's some story attached to them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Then the question is, I mentioned it, is the temperature that you have from molten lava is more than enough to actually do carburizing of iron, of this meteoric iron, to make the steel. And if you wanted to show the screen, here's kind of the cinder cone area. I've zoomed in on it a little bit. So you have the main volcano just outside of the red, the San Martin. You can kind of see it in the small print. And so that's your cinder cone area that is adjacent to the areas that we're talking about. So
Okay, I want to make sure that I understand this correctly. So you're saying the swords of Shul, you think were actually cooked like a marshmallow via the heat, like they're making s'mores practically, of some of these mini volcanoes, cinder cones, you call them, and that was the metallurgical process of making the swords of Shul.
yeah, you have to have carbon. So there would be some trees and wood or something associated with it, because you have to have a carbon source to pound into or work into the surface of your iron. Right. And so it's the heat source. Meaning, yes, they probably put it in there, got it red hot, and then they had, wood, coals.
Now, is this something he would have gotten via revelation that was very ahead of his time, or is this a metallurgical practice that other peoples of the same era had discovered as well and was kind of not naturalistically, but already observed?
It's like 4 or 5 generations removed from their arrival. So presumably they may have known of it still.
Certainly not something that was maintained for much longer after that.
Yeah, and because, like we said, obsidian, even if you'd make steel, it's an inferior weapon to obsidian. Obsidian is sharp as a razor, as a surgeon's scalpel. And so if you've got plenty of obsidian, you dig it anywhere. Why would you go through all this effort to make steel? There's no reason for it, at least for weapons for sure. So that's kind of the assertion is they may have had this as a residual, knowledge.
They had a sharper, lighter, more abundant resource to make other swords much more common, but this was...
Yeah, we know anciently they were using iron, pounding it and things like that. Whether they made steel, I don't know, but in the sense of this area, we don't really have any examples.
Yeah, there's no evidence of it.
Yeah, the problem is iron and steel in these kind of climates doesn't last. The Tuxtlas are like one of the wettest place in the hemisphere, in terms of rainfall and everything. So
they didn't galvanize it. That was probably a bad move.
Yeah, and so that's why when they got them, when the Lemhites got them, it said the hilts were gone, they were all rusted. They were probably trying to keep them, but it's hard in that kind of climate. Right?
No chance.
It also talks about this remnant population that they got them from, because it says, if you read carefully, the Lemhites came down and then Limhi actually told Ammon, he said, hey, we have these records. We wonder if these records would tell the story of the people that were destroyed or the remnant from whom we got them, right?
Yeah.
And so you actually do have a direct passage of these somehow from ether, because ether hid the place. We don't really know what that means. So it was actually, the theory is this was kept all the way down as part of what we call in Mesoamerica a sacred bundle.
So you're using some linguistic clues, some etymological clues to open up a door of plausibility and possibility on how these swords might have been created, because really in just about any model in the New World, there's not much metallurgic activity going on. So, it's really just opening up the door of plausibility.
Yeah. And I think the point I'm making is, again, the reason it's mentioned, so they're really only mentioned in a couple of places, is because they were some unique item.
Yep.
Right? Just because you see steel mentioned doesn't mean, everybody in the whole place had these steel swords. Probably the reason it was mentioned is because they were something, and they were molten out of this hill.
Unique, yeah.
It was some special thing. When he's saying he's molting it out of the hill and all this, where else is that happening, right? He talks about Jared, brother of Jared, molting the 16 stones, right?
Yep.
And the other place
as an exceptional, unique occurrence,
right? And then you have Nephi molting the iron to build the ship. So it's only mentioned a few times,
right? Right.
And so I guess what I'm saying is, it seems like what we're looking at, and that it's kind of the context when you're looking at metallurgy in general in the Book of Mormon. Just because you see one doesn't mean that it was like ubiquitous everywhere, right?
100%. Yeah.
And so what is a sacred bundle? Josh maybe has some idea what a sacred bundle is.
No, it usually tied in with the breastplate, there would be a package that would be put together. I mean, it was tied to religious affairs and ceremony.
Yeah. Every tribe had one pretty much. And what they were was they would wrap them in linen, and it had all kinds of like special weapons.
Yep.
Cool.
Had effigy weapons. If you're familiar with what that is, that's where
people were even buried with these, right? So,
well, the tribe would try to keep them to the next leader. They were passed on.
Yep.
There were some tribes had their own personal one, but
Yeah.
I'm talking the tribal one, the one with the main things that gave the power, because they believed that was the source of their power. They had effigy weapons where you actually hold the weapon up, and this special sacred weapon would give power to all of the warriors' weapons in the tribe as you went to battle.
Yeah, rock on.
Now, does that sound familiar from the Book of Mormon?
Yeah.
King Benjamin, what did he do? He raised the sword of Laban when he was fighting.
Oh, yeah, it's true.
Yeah. So what I'm getting at is, eventually, we're going to get to that at the end here, is the sacred bundle is not a unique item to the Jaredites, okay, in the Book of Mormon. Now, the sacred bundle itself, again, it had this divine authority and kingship, had to be passed down, special items. If you want to pop up my screen.
Yep.
This is from the Borgia Codex, and it's this sacred bundle they've drawn with all these magical things spewing out of it.
Awesome.
Out of the middle.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so they were wrapped in sacred cords and cloth. They believed they had a secret invisible energy.
This would be a great Sunday school class. Everybody make your own sacred bundle and then hold it up at the front of the end of Sunday school.
Like every congregation gets their own?
Absolutely. And then they compete against which one is the most powerful bundle. Dude, you were talking about this
I kind of got lost in the primary lesson.
Incredible looking special bundle on the screen with things like spewing out of it. You were on this bundle.
Yeah. And one item that they often contain, which is kind of interesting, is in Mesoamerica, especially the Olmec, we know, they had these highly polished mirrors and breastplates.
Right.
Breastplates that are mirror breastplates.
Exactly.
Made of
super common in the area. In the time period.
And they've discovered these in archaeological digs, multiple places in the Olmec area, and they could be made of typically pyrite, an iron pyrite. They would highly polish them, or iron itself, because certain types of iron ore if you polish it, it will get a shiny surface on it. So you have them working and making these breastplates, and they were divinatory breastplates, and they'd wear them in battle because they would actually reflect, long distance, and they could start fire. They believed that they were powerful because they could start fires with them because they were concave. They would polish them concave, so you could actually concentrate, just like you do, like when
you bake bread in the Boy Scouts.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Okay.
So they were just Boy Scouts that killed a lot of
That
people,
would feel really toasty when you're in battle. I decide.
Well, it's going forward though.
Yeah, but still,
It's reflecting. And then they would also, if you look at a lot of the Maya depictions, they have like spirits coming out of them. You can see these smoke coming out of them. In fact, one of the main gods, which kind of equates to Satan, is called Smoking Mirror. That was existing in the Book of Mormon time. So those were all part of in their sacred bundle, right? Let me go through. And the other thing is, if you want to pop this one up,
Okay.
is they created these weird illusions when you have a concave. So you can kind of take the hand, kind of looks like it's coming out of the mirror. Also, if you just take a spoon, that's concave, and you take it toward your face, your face will flip upside down at some point.
it's like the mirrors at an amusement park.
Yeah, so it has these focal point things that are kind of funky, right? That make it, again, kind of a mysterious, supernatural or religious connotations to them because they could do kind of spiritual type things. And this is a mirror that was an Olmec mirror. This is the reflection off it. You see how high quality they were.
Yeah, that looks like basically a modern mirror, like a manufactured
I'd say a
aluminum back
1970s mirror. Look at that green in the background.
Okay,
Well,
that's
that's the
true.
book.
That's true. That's true. Okay.
El Centro Optica of Mexico. So they were very high quality. These were not just slapped together, and they were significant. But
Yeah.
so what you have is the breastplates that were also discovered or given as part of this Jaredite sacred bundle to the Limhites. The proposal is they were probably these, reflective, concave, divinatory, sacred mirror breastplates, right? Everyone thinks of breastplates, but they would wear them in battle, but that purpose was not partially maybe defend themselves, but it was partially just to display their power, especially the leader would.
Okay. So almost more ceremonial.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you notice, it talks about them when the Limhites bring them back. It says they were a testimony, right?
Yeah. It does say that.
Yeah, and meaning it was a witness of, because they were basically saying
Of the great power that they had been given, the victory that they had been delivered, and
but the point is they were looking for the Nephites, right? They were looking for Zarahemla when they went out.
Yep.
And what did they bring back? They brought back a record, gold record. They brought back weapons, and they brought back these divinatory breastplates. The proposal is probably, perhaps by that time, the plates like the interpreters. We know they were hooked onto a breastplate, right?
Yeah.
Flipped up. So the Nephites probably had maybe done that. So when they brought this back, it actually was kind of similar to what the Nephites would be. And obviously, if they've got the sacred bundle, if somehow they were given this sacred bundle, that meant they were all dead, because you only surrender your sacred bundle if your total tribe is defeated, right? That's just kind of the way the culture was. So
it was like those standards that the Romans would carry into battle. To lose the standard of your legion was considered like the ultimate defeat. And there would even be like not the Visigoths, but there was a great Germanic tribe that stole one of those like standards of one of the centurion groups or whatever. And there's the famous epic story where they went back to Germany to get it. Like, I mean, it was their sacred
meant something,
bundle,
right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
And the other thing we know that it wasn't just them. Oh, we went up. The Limhites wandered around this destroyed area, and these things were laying on the battlefield, because the hilts were gone. They were rusted away. Yet the copper breastplates, copper and brass, which actually interpreted to pyrite, really in terms of equivalency, meant color and consistency, those were perfectly sound. they're both metal. So what I'm saying is we know they're coming from two different eras, right? It's not just battle detritus. And so then the question is, they were talked about as being large, these breastplates. Well, we know from looking closely at the text in the Book of Mormon, there are very few people that are said to be large of stature. Nephi 1, but this last group of 24 of the Jaredites, Lib, who had lived 500 years or more before, was large of stature, but it was the final 24 who were not the final 24, that's the Mormon group, but the final group of Shiz and Coriantumr that were battling. So it's likely that maybe this was Shiz and Coriantumr's breastplates that were
stuff.
Yeah, they were sacred. They were like powerful things, So does that make sense?
Yeah. So in stature, you're talking about in potential power.
Well, I'm even talking size. So
okay,
because they were described as large. So I'm kind of like, okay, who is large? Who do we even know that's large in the Book of Mormon? It's just really those last two that would actually have breastplates that would be of importance. And Coriantumr, we don't really know exactly because he wasn't a direct line. We don't know where his power, his right to rule came from. He obviously was familiar with Ether, so the theory is maybe he was a relative, like a brother or cousin or something like that, right? Because Ether would go and talk to him. Ether wasn't going to Shiz
right,
and talking to him, but he was having some communication with Coriantumr, telling him,
of course, it was the prophecy that his whole household would perish, so there's that.
Exactly,
yeah.
right. But so he's actually, otherwise he'd just be killed, right, or something like that.
Right.
And he was his father's in captivity, but he was let out. Ether wasn't kept in captivity. So presumably it wasn't, if it was a rival king, he would have kept Ether in captivity. Mm-hmm. That's a little bit of conjecture, but it kind of makes sense with what the text is. So then the question is, what does this have to do with the Nephites? Did the Nephites have a sacred bundle? They clearly did. Otherwise, they wouldn't have brought these things back as a testimony of the destruction of the Nephites.
And is that the sacred bundle that made it into Nephi's Ark, a.k.a. the stone box that Joseph Smith uncovered?
It fits perfectly. What's in there? A breastplate? Yeah.
And when he took them out, what was he told to do immediately? Right when he got the plates out of the box.
Hide them?
First thing, no. Right up there. He was to wrap them in a napkin, in a cloth.
Okay.
That's what sacred bundles are. That's how it preserves their power. I'm not saying it was exactly, he knew how to tie the knot exactly or whatever.
This is a great tie. I really like this.
Okay. Yep. And then the breastplate.
So we have a breastplate, we have the interpreters, we have the sword of Laban, and we have the plates. A sacred bundle.
And the Lehon, right?
And yeah, exactly.
Right. All their sacred relics. Powerful relics. Highly religious relics that are passed, as we know in the Book of Mormon, from the high priest to the high priest. Now,
as a Mesoamerican Nephite sacred bundle.
Yes. Now, there are parallels, like in Hebrew, like Don Bradley talks about, well, it also was equivalent to what was in the Ark and Covenant, right? Because there was like the sword of Goliath, and he kind of talks about the Leahona being equivalent to manna. So it wasn't just a Mesoamerican tradition, that they had this Hebrew also sacred relics, right? And it was powerful, had similar.
Well, there's sacred relics probably in any culture tied to any religion in certain ways. Yeah.
And what I'm saying is, but the particular ones they kept actually had some Hebrew meaning.
Elements to it.
Yes, right. And so here's I'll read. Maybe we can just pop this up so people can read. This is Joseph Smith's mother talking about the breastplate. We don't have much on the breastplate. She says, he handed me the breastplate, spoken of in his history. It was wrapped in a thin muslin handkerchief, so thin that I could see the glistening metal and ascertain its proportions.
The glistening metal.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It was concave on one side and convex on the other.
Oh, this is
just
great.
like I'm saying, this is the
That's
Olmec
exactly
divinatory mirror breastplates.
Yep.
Wow. This literally sounds exactly like the the Olmec chest plate that you just showed us, where you could do like the funny mirror, carnival mirror,
right?
Double take in it.
And in Mesoamerica, it was a divinatory breastplate. They would wear it for divination, to receive revelation.
Wow.
And that is how the Smiths started their fires for the rest of the winter.
Yeah. I mean, this is incredible. Look,
It really is.
This is
the
what
witness testimony is matching the description that Jerry's given. It really is.
Yeah, I mean, look at this. Here is,
And it was copper, right?
so this is Lucy Mack Smith, right?
It maybe was the very breastplate, and she said it was large. This may be one of, and it was constructed to have the interpreters. There's a little bar would flip up, and then the interpreters mounted on it. So I'm saying this is consistent with even with those breastplates that were discovered as part of the Limhite expedition. Those were kept as a sacred item as well, and incorporated into the divination of the interpreters, which were a Jaredite item. Right?
When were these concave breastplates first discovered? When did they start finding these things?
You find them way back in the Olmec.
I mean, they're
Laventa
not
had a lot of
uncommon.
No,
They're
but
not
like in the
uncommon.
1700s and the 1800s?
Oh, we're talking-
No,
like
more recent.
what are you talking about in the Olmecs?
He's talking about an archaeological.
It was like
excavations.
I think
you know.
I don't have a list of all of them. There's a whole book, but clearly Laventa had them. So you're talking
Probably 1960s, 1970s during
BC.
No. He's talking about when people were finding.
When did
them.
archaeologists first start finding
them.
and documenting these
I
breastplates?
think. Well, they started excavating Olmec stuff. Really, they didn't even find the heads. The first Tres Zapotes was like 1959 or something.
Yeah.
So and then they've since dug. There's not a lot of Olmec archaeology going on right now.
No, there's a void. There's a huge gap where there needs to be filled with a lot more money and archaeological excavation in the area.
Okay.
But you're really getting popularized in the 60s and 70s.
Okay. Wow. So they start finding in the 60s Olmec concave breastplates that perfectly match the description of one Lucy Mack Smith, who literally said, I finally concluded to go down and see what he wanted, upon which he handed me the breastplate spoken of in its history, wrapped in a handkerchief so thin I could see the glistening metal and ascertain its proportions. At which point she then describes a mirror that is concave on both sides and extended from the neck downward as far as the center of the stomach, meant for a man of extraordinary size, as explained in the Book of Mormon. This is incredible stuff, dude.
And here's the other key is these, if you notice, she didn't unwrap.
Right.
It had to remain wrapped. The plates, when Joseph Smith wasn't using them, what was done with them?
They were to be wrapped.
Yes. And
Emma even moves them around. Different people move them around, but they remain
because they
wrapped.
say, he was commanded that so you couldn't see them. Well, it's like, no, this was part of the Moroni. And let's remember, who is the last Nephite high priest?
Moroni.
Right. So did Joseph Smith have any hereditary right to any of this stuff? No. So where did it go? Moroni took
Back to Moroni.
Yes, because he's the only one that can really possess these.
Oh, so this would simultaneously explain why Moroni took back the
sacred
breastplate
bundle.
and the interpreters.
Yeah, everything.
Because sorry, Joseph, they ain't yours. You ain't in the tribe, brother.
So Lucy
Sword of
just saw
Laban,
them.
all these things did not stay with Joseph Smith.
Lucy sees them through the cloth. Not even all the three witnesses see them because Martin goes off into the woods. So this is seen by Joseph. This is seen by Oliver and
Very
David
limited, right.
on the table because the angel, when he shows it to them, lays it down on the table. Martin sees this first, his vision of the golden plates a little differently because he sees the angel in the golden plates and he shouts out, 'tis enough, mine eyes have beheld.
Right.
And he goes away. So he doesn't actually see all the artifacts on the table in the same way that David and Oliver would have, and Joseph obviously had his hands on them. So we have 3 witnesses of those artifacts, plus people interacting with them through the frock, through the cloth.
And then here's the interesting thing also is everybody kind of talks about the hat, Joseph Smith using the hat. Yes, he had some history, right, with it, but he was commanded not to. It wasn't. People say, well, he's looking in there because he could see better if it was in the dark. I'm not saying that isn't true, but he was also, because he started out with the curtain, right? We know that very early, and then it was a practical thing. He could not let anybody see, or wasn't supposed to let them see the interpreters.
The light and revelation of the.
Yes, so for me, it was like, and again, this is just me saying a reason, because it's also conjecture that he could see better with the light. It's also, if you're from a practical standpoint, he was keeping it from Oliver Cowdery seeing it by having it in the hat. Instead of a curtain, he just evolved to, I'm just going to use a hat because I can't let anybody see this stone.
And it's more personal of experience. If somebody else is in the room, do I want to curtain them off and then talk through a curtain? Like, that's just an awkward.
Right. So I'm just saying that's an alternate or an additional explanation that people really have not considered, that he was not supposed to. We know he was commanded not to let them see that unless the Lord let them, right?
Wow.
So what I'm saying is, yes, this is
nuggets.
a sacred
There's
bundle.
some good nuggets.
This is a sacred bundle in the box.
So do you think we're going to be able to see it again?
You can come visit me down in the lower kingdoms, and maybe I'll show it to me. But
Yeah.
Josh doesn't believe that.
No, I'm good. Let's go to paradise, baby. I'm with you.
Oh yeah, dude, man. I love the bicker tonights. It's like Joseph Smith's cosmology, ... simplified.
Well,
You know what I'm saying?
Well,
just like
because
how
it's
they
the
get-
Book of Mormon cosmology.
That's savage, man. That's funny.
anyway, hopefully
All
that's
right,
been
dude.
enlightening and new, and something you haven't heard before.
Yeah, I like
Wow.
the Swords of Shul. I like that.
I want to see one
Good
of these
book.
breastplates, bro. When we do one of these video trips down to check out the Olmecs in Mexico, I'm gonna want to see one of these breastplates because that absolutely blows
I
my
mean, they're
mind.
kind of
and I'm
rusted
loving it.
away and stuff because they were buried, right? And I don't know what museums would have them.
They'll have them in a frock.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'd have to. I mean, I've seen pictures in that, but I don't know where they would be exactly.
We'll have to check it out. We'll have to check it out. I'm
Well,
sure
dude,
there's.
I wanna see one of
they
these
are
things.
down there. They have been found.
Yeah.
There's ways to.
Well, and the pictures that I had here, those are.
Yeah.
Let's see this last one. Some of them are like in stone, like this one here with the hand.
Holy umbrellas.
I'm getting your
Pass them
umbrellas
around.
again, bro.
I love it.
Man, I guess I ended this slideshow. Sorry. There we go. That one where you saw the hand, that's an actual one.
Yeah.
That wasn't one
Right.
they created. That is an actual one. that
Wow.
They recovered. And
Yeah,
again,
there we are.
No, I see it. Yeah.
so sometimes they would actually polish stone. Part of the concept too is it's just reflective. So they would actually look in water for their divination, like a dish of water, because it's this clear, reflective surface, right? So anytime they had a reflective surface, it had some divinatory, capability, I guess is what you call it.
Yeah.
Kind of like, when you had Frodo looking into Galadriel's mirror.
Ooh.
Okay. I don't understand that reference, but I know it's from Lord of the Rings,
Okay.
but I am the uninitiated.
Do you remember when he was? Did you watch it?
No. I've watched them all once, thought they were very rushed, not as good as the books, but my children love them, so I've gleaned parts here and there as my wife and my children watch and rewatch them.
You have to understand, I grew up when it wasn't cool and I was made fun of for reading Lord of the Rings. So
Oh, okay. Hardcore.
It wasn't
Okay.
kind of for nerds only kind of thing.
Okay. Awesome. So, gosh, let us know what you guys think in the comments below. I usually say, what's the counter position? What do you guys think? But this just, it seems to add up, my man. So please, let's keep the conversation going below. For this and more, please make sure you check us out at wardradio.com. Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. We assume if you made it this far that you liked our content. So please make sure that you smash that like button and you share this video with your friends. Also, if you haven't subscribed yet to our channel, please make sure that you subscribe and you press the alert button so you receive alerts on every one of our daily uploads. Now, We want to make sure that we keep all of this content flowing for free to you, the viewer. And to do that, we need your help. If you're a person of means, please consider a direct contribution through Venmo or through Zelle. And the links to those platforms will be in the description as well. Also, if you want to help us out, please make sure you buy some of our merch. We got really cool hats, really cool t-shirts for both boy and girl viewers, all available on wardradio.com. And while you're there, you can sign up for our Ward Radio newsletter. You can receive all the really great Ward Radio news directly in your inbox simply by putting your email address in wardradio.com. And finally, if you guys want to help out purchasing some of the equipment in the studio, you can always check out our Amazon wish list that is also available in the description of this video. And either way, whether you're pressing this button here to make sure you're subscribed to our channel, or whether you're watching another video here just because you like our stuff, we look forward to seeing you guys in the next program.